Okay, so if you have this number display.text, you should see the new text being built. Okay, so far so good. Now what do we do? We've got a number being built. We need to think about the logic of how this is going to work now.
So when we add the operator, it's gonna be like every number is gonna be deleted and we start a new numbering, or the same number is gonna appear and the operator will appear in the text field.
No, we will program this like an old style calculator. So you are typing a number and then you, let's say you press plus, and then you start, yes. So the text field will still show that number until you start typing a new number, right? So we've got this where we are able to display the numbers. Now we need to start talking about the model. What we are getting is, let's call it, whenever we have these operators, they need two numbers to act on, the first and the second number. That's how they act. So you're adding two numbers, you're subtracting one from another, or multiplying or dividing, whatever the case may be. So maybe we have something called first number. And the user is typing, and they're typing, and still the first number. When do we know that the first number has been entered? When they hit an operation. So what does that give us? What is the operation that they are going to do? So we have got, at that point, we've got the first number and we've got an operation. So let's say the number I entered was 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I hit a plus. So this becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, and this becomes plus. This has a limited number of values in our case. We have only these 4, right? So we've got this, we've got this. Now the user is going to start typing another number. What does that become? Second number. We can store it in something called second number. And then the user may keep on typing digits, and all of them keep getting stored in the second number. Then what happens? At some point they'll do something else. Maybe they'll press equal sign. Let's take the simplest case for now. Let's say after that equal sign is pressed. So at that point, we have the first number, we have an operation, and we have the second number. We can calculate a result and display it. So these are the basic building blocks of our model. It needs a first number, it needs an operation, it needs a second number, and it needs a result. Either it needs to calculate and store it or return it from a function. So what we will do is we'll start now building the model. And this is something new that you're going to do. So what we will do is, in your folder where all the other code is, right click and choose new file. You'll right click and choose new file, and it will give you all sorts of options of what types of files. There are different cases for different files, and we will look at some of these as we go forward. But right now what we want is a Swift file, a basic Swift file, in which we'll program a class for the calculator, which will be the model of the calculator. Okay. So create that Swift file, and it's going to ask you a name. Don't give it a name yet. Here I want you to use your first name. Underscore calculator model. So use your first name and then calculator model. and create. Okay. Once you hit that, you will get a blank file. It says import foundation. That's all. That's the only line in it other than the comments. So what this is doing is it's importing the foundation framework of Swift. Basically, it has all the basic stuff that we need. Here we'll define our class. So the same file name, you can use the same here as the class name. That's a blank class we have declared. So now we need these variables: first number, operation, and second number. And when the class is instantiated, we don't have any of these. So we have a choice. We could either declare them as optionals, which means they will be null, they will be nil until a value is assigned, or we could give them a default value of 0. So in this case, if you think about it, if you want to calculate a result, you need to have a value in both first number, second number, as well as the operation. If any of them is not assigned, then you cannot calculate a result. It's impossible. If you have the first number and the operation, you don't have a second number, you cannot calculate it. And there is a hierarchy. Unless you have a first number, you cannot have an operation. Unless you have an operation, you won't have a second number. So all of this logic we will deal with. For now, let's start declaring the variables. First number. What's the type? Integer, I hear. Double. Yes. So we can allow, yeah, decimal. So we'll go with double. Okay. So that's what we'll do. We'll declare it as an optional. So this will stay nil until, in the same way, second number. In operation, really, we could store it in different ways. We will just store it as a string. So if, okay, good question. What's your name? Kritarth. Good question, Kritarth. So question mark, if we don't have a question mark here, then when you create an object of this class, when you instantiate it, it must have a value as soon as it is created. See, there is immediately an error came. Has no initializers, because initializer is the equivalent of constructor. In Java, you have used the word constructors. In Swift, they are called initializers. So basically, you're initializing, you're creating an instance of this class. And without a question mark, that initializer must have statements that provides values to these. Otherwise, you will not be able to use this code. So question mark, what it does is it tells the compiler that, okay, this is going to be nil at the beginning. The other option you have is actually to just say, you know, here 0.0, or just 0 is good because it will be converted to a double. So that way also you will see if I do this, that error message should go away. String is optional, but these two are not. So that's why that question mark. We want it to be able to be set to nil. Okay. So we have a model class. What do we do with it? So we have a view in the storyboard, and we have the controller in this view controller, and now we have the model. We have to connect these three together. So view and view controller are already talking to each other. We connected those IB outlets and IB actions. The model needs to go in there as well. So over here in the view controller, we need an instance of the model class. Let's do that. Let's create that. I'm going to add a comment here. Other variables. And we will do calculator model equal to whatever class name you have used. So this will instantiate an object and assign it to this. So this is what we've just added, these two lines. Sanoop, is your code compiling on that? Is it working fine? Okay, so now we have a model, and what we can do is now we have an object here of that class. Okay, so what we are doing here is we are getting, in this part digits are being pressed, right? So what we want to do now is whatever these digits they have been pressed, we want to assign it to either the first number or the second number depending upon what's the state of the model, right? So what we can do is we can create a function in the model that takes in the number as the argument, and then it will check, have I got a first number? No, then this is the first number. Have I got a first number and an operation? Then this is the second number. If I have a first number but not an operation, this is an update to the first number. New digits are being added. So we keep storing the state of whatever is the calculator is in into the model, right? So let's create that function. We'll go back to the model class and we'll declare a function. Let's call it update number. And we'll call it new number. Actually, what we are getting over there is a string, but we don't care about that. We'll use a double here. Okay, and here first let's see if now we need to check if the first number is defined or not. So is it nil? If it is not nil, what to do? So let's find out. There are various ways you could do that. You could use what is called optional binding. But the simplest is basically just to check if something is nil. So that's what we'll do. If first number is nil, then we'll assign first number to whatever this new number. Okay, how many of you understand this function declaration? Let's take a step back. So this, what is the function name here? Update number. And what is inside the brackets right after that? It's the parameter, one parameter we have. What is it called? New number, and that's its type, double. This is how you declare functions in Swift. You give the variable name, the parameter name, colon, and then its type, what it is expecting. Okay, so if first number is nil, then first number equal to new number. Else if, what is the next thing we need to check? Operation. If the operation is nil, then again we still assign it the new number to the first number. Else it will be the second number. Okay, at this point when you have this function ready, oops, sorry, going too fast. Okay, so this is the function we have just added. Now we want to be able to call it from here. So that's what we'll do here. We'll say calculator model dot update number, and it is expecting a double. What is the data type of current value? Remember, current value is where we are updating the numbers, the digits as they are being typed. What is its data type? String. It is a string, and the argument we need to give is a double. Okay. So how do we do that? We will need to convert the string to a number, to a double. In Swift, it's fairly straightforward. You could just instantiate a double from the string. And since we are confident, see, this is now complaining that this, what can happen is that current value, if it has non-numbers in it, if it has got A, B, C, D in it, and we say create a double out of it, what is it going to do? It's going to return a nil. So it is an optional. That's why we are getting this message, cannot convert value of type double optional to expected argument of type double, which cannot be nil. This is something new for you. Insert as double, as exclamation. Let me try something else here. Let's see. Or we can just put an exclamation and unwrap it. We are saying that we are confident that whatever we send to this, as programmers, whatever we send to this constructor of the double, it is always going to be a number. If it is not, just crash the app. So that's why we put an exclamation here. So now what it will do is it will update the number in the model. It will call the update number, pass as new number. Now, okay, how many of you okay, do you know what this is? Why do we have this highlighted part here? But the parameter value is just the double of current value. Why do we have that new number? Where did that come from? In Swift, what happens is when you are calling a function, each parameter needs a label, and that label is defined here in this function, right? The label is the same as the parameter name, and we talked about this a little bit last time. Whatever is here needs to be here, so it makes the code more readable, unless you have no doubt, in which case if I were to say put an underscore and a space before new number, you'll see promptly an error come up here. Well, it did not, but what that means is that this argument label which is there in the function call is not required. We could just do this. On the other hand, if this underscore is not there and I remove this, I just say okay, it needs one parameter, I'll just pass it this, and it will complain missing argument label. So that technically it's called argument label, and Xcode is very nice. Whenever it gives you an error message, this red circle with a dot, if you click on it, it will offer you some fix. Save some typing. I can say just fix and it will fix it for me. Okay, so now we have got something happening where our model is getting the first number, right? Let's do something else now. At this point, the display won't show anything other than that. Let's take one of the operations. Let's take addition, and we will use that and add a second number and see if we can produce the result, and then we can extrapolate it to the other operations. Okay, so let's go case. So what do we need to do? We need to set the operation. When that is pressed, we need to update the operation. We can directly access this variable. So what we can do is we'll just say calculator model dot operation is equal to I can say plus, but what I will do is I'll keep it more generic. I'll use this variable button text on which we are running the switch, so that this code can be extended to other operations right here. Okay, so now we have got first number and operation being saved, and let's see. Let's run the code. We will probably have to do some other changes, other things to set up. So I'm pressing 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got the print statement twice, so that's why it is printing twice. Now I want to do this, handle the plus. Okay, so I press plus. What do you expect now if I press 5? What do you expect to see there? Just 5, right? What will happen now? Because we are not tracking it. We have just said, okay, send the operation to the model, but we didn't track that okay, now a new number is going to be entered, right? So that's what we need to do. What we need is a state here. So when this operation is pressed, we need to accept second number after this, right? So what we need is a variable here in the controller that allows us to track that. That was just a comment I added. Okay, so we'll use a boolean. What is a boolean? True, false. Let's call it start new number. Okay, and by default it is actually true. So when the first thing appears in the calculator, if a number is pressed, we are starting a new number. So this is what we added. Start new number is true. Okay, and when digits are being pressed, so our functionality is that whenever that start new number is true, whatever is on the display, it is going to remove that and start a new number. So we need to make it false when a number is being entered, otherwise it will keep on removing those digits. So as soon as we start typing digits, we've typed, we're typing 1, 2, 3, 4. The first digit is typed, and if another digit is typed, then we are not replacing it. We are appending it. So we're not starting a new number. We're just continuing the present number. So in this case, when these buttons are being pressed, here we will set start new number to false, and over here we'll set it to true. So after an operation, start a new number. Okay. So over here we know that we are starting a new number and continuing the same number, but when a digit is pressed, we need to check, right? Our condition here says if current value is equal to 0, then replace. So let's see what the thing looks like. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have pressed an operation, Now this start new number has become true, and now if I press any other digits, it should replace, it should do this, it should not do this. So over here we can just change this to if start new number is true, then replace. Okay, so let's make that change. So if start new number is true, which it is in the beginning when the app opens, and whenever an operation is touched, so whatever is there, it will replace it. So let's see how it functions. That will be more intuitive. So I have got 1, 2, 3, and now I say plus, right? So this start new number has now become true. Now if I say 4, I expect to, instead of seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, I want to see just 4 there. So right now it is allowing us to take those numbers in. It's not doing the calculation. It's taking the numbers in, and when this update number is called, it is also appropriately setting either the first or the second number. Okay. So what we want now is we want to program a case for viewing the result of the operation. So we'll look at the case when equals is pressed. Okay, so we'll get the result and display it. And it's complaining right now because we don't have a code, so just ignore this error for a moment. So where do we do the calculation? Calculation should be in the controller or in the model? Model, because we have, that's where we are keeping the first number, the second number, and the operation, right? That's the current state of whatever the calculator is doing. So what we need is a function here that returns the result. So function get, let's call it get result. It will take no arguments, but it is going to return something. It is going to return a double. And this is something new for you again. This is how you return. You specify that there is a return argument, that something is going to be returned. Hyphen greater than, basically an arrow, and the type that is going to be returned. So now here, what is the result? We have first number, we have second number, we have an operation. So what is the result? Depends on the operation. So basically it's first number, then the operation, then the second number, and the operation can be any one of these, right? So again, we will do a switch here. Operation, okay, and what we are doing right now is the plus. So let's define a variable in this function called result double, and result is equal to first number plus if the operation was plus.
Okay, we didn't add
Sorry,
question. Why we didn't add questions in the end of the which one? Double at where is it?
where?
Where is it? We didn't add like a question mark at the end of the double.
Here?
Yeah,
Why we did not?
yeah.
Because we are going to give it a value. It's not going to remain, it is not going to be, it's not going to be returning a nil. So it is all, before we use it, we have to give it a value. Since we are assigning it before we use it, it has a value. If we use it before we assign, it's going to complain. So it's okay. And here, everybody got this error as well? You're getting this same error? It's saying that these we declared as optionals. These can be nil. So how can you add two things, or even if just one of them is null, how can you add it to a double? It's a problem, right? But we know that when this get result is called, we have a value in all of these. So we will say force unwrap. Is it possible though that, let's say I'm typing a number, I type on the key calculator 1, 2, 3, 4, then I press plus and then I press equal to. I have not defined the second number. I have only defined the first number. Right? It's possible. So in that case, what do you expect a calculator to do? If you press 1, 2, 3, 4, then you press plus and then you press equal to, what does it do? Nothing? Or does it treat the whatever is there as the second number? Okay, let's try this. 1, 2, 3, 4 plus. It doubled it. It basically treated whatever was there. So what we can also do is, before we call this get result, we can check if the second number is defined or not. If it is not, we set it as the current value and let it run with it, right? So for now, let's deal with the case when we are just going to say, for here we'll just say use the exclamation to force unwrap it. Basically, we are taking the guarantee, we are giving it the guarantee that these two will never be null. They will have some value. Okay. And now, since we have built this result, we can just return it. Okay. And what is going on here? So our result we can get, and if you notice, at the end of this function we are assigning whatever current value was, we are displaying it in the text field. So if we just update it here, calculator model dot get result, it should get the result and display it. And yes, it is going to complain our return is a double and this expects a string. So just create a string out of it. Oops. Okay, build failed. So build failed. Did you all get this as well? Okay, that's because this is just a placeholder. We need to do something here. Let's say result equal to, we'll just by default return 0 if there is a problem. We can change it later on. We could return, make this optional and return a nil and then trap it and print an error message. All those possibilities exist. Okay, so let's see. Now I should be able to theoretically add two numbers, 12 plus 1. It's doing the addition, right? Won't do anything else right now. We haven't done anything clear, nothing. We have not programmed anything. Now if we start typing another number, see what happens. It's just appending. Because our logic for checking all those things is missing. So what we will do is, before we end today's class, let's fix that part first. So we, after equal to, we can set start new number to true, so that if you start typing another number, it does not append to the result. And how do we know? See, how does it know we're typing? Imagine the sequence in your head, or let's look at it here even better. Let me run it again. Okay, I'm typing a number. I type 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I say plus. Okay, and now I'm typing another number. 5, 6. So while I'm typing the number, it is updating the model and it is getting the second number. The case we talked about was what happens if you press equal to right after and the second number has not been assigned, right? So if let me do that, and I think our app should crash because the second number is nil. It has not been assigned. So let's do that. 1, 2, 3 plus equal to. See, it crashed, right? So what we can do is to prevent that crash and to have the same behavior as the calculators that people use. Before we call this get result, we can check if calculator model dot second number, if it is nil, then call again that update, same thing with the current value, because the current value still contains the whatever is being displayed. So we'll just call this function, the same function. We'll copy this code from here, calculator model dot update number, and this is only when the second number is nil. So it does not crash, it uses it. It uses the same number that was being displayed as the second number. Let's see if that helped. So 1, 2, 3 plus equal to 246. Okay. So this is what we added to get that behavior. If the second number is nil, then add this. Okay. I think this is a good logical point for us to stop for the day. I'm just going to go through the slides and see if there are any other things we needed to do. Spend a couple of minutes talking about them. So today we saw this mark and mark colon. In the same way, Swift also has in the markup to do and fix me. So these are things you can use in your comments, just like you did slash slash mark, you can slash slash to do, and it will show up there to help you find them. And fix me, you know that there is a problem, you have done some hack and you want to do it properly. Fix me later. Naming conventions we talked about, code reuse. This we will look at. Swift is very particular about spacing. You will notice that if you don't leave spaces between, let's say here, or between operations, it is going to complain. It's going to give you an error. So if I want to assign something, if I do this, something like this, I don't remember if in this exact case, but there are cases where it wants you to have proper spacing between operators. And if you see those errors, just look for spacing. So we've been talking a little bit about best practices, how to name variables, etc. Why do it? And since you're all aiming to okay, you're all aiming to work in this field, you might want to know why. One thing is that if everybody, let's say you're working in a team, you've got other people working, and maybe it's all going to be in the same code base. If everybody follows the same types of practices, same types of naming conventions, it becomes much easier for you to read his code or his code, and the other way around. So that is one thing. Readability itself improves. When you are yourself reading, if you have used proper, the camel casing and proper naming conventions, it's easier for you to read. Instead of calling the variables, it's so much to type first number. Why not just call it F, N, or Q? And then later on, you're wondering what it is. It's easier to maintain. And who is the biggest beneficiary of doing that? Yeah, yourself, exactly. If you work long enough in this field, as sometimes I have to look at code that was written 15 years ago. And if I have not followed those practices, even if I wrote it, not another member of my team, even if I wrote it and I have not followed those practices, I will be sitting there scratching my head. What is this? So if you follow best practices and you stick to it, you will find that you will benefit the most. Even if it's, sometimes just 3-4 months is enough to go back there and then you're wondering, okay, I don't remember what I did 3 months ago. So class will wrap up now. What are the things that we covered today? Model, how to create a model class, how to use it, how to instantiate it. What else? Functions, buttons, how to connect the same IV action to lots of buttons and then use it. And switch statement in Swift, you must have used it in other places. Things like that. And we talked a little bit about the best practices, naming conventions, etc. So in your syllabus, you've got some assignment, reading assignment for this week, week 2. Please read this as well, find out what tuples are, and we'll talk about it in the next class a little bit. Anybody know what a tuple is? Two or more values, yeah. You create it on the spot right there. Yeah, those are tuples. And there was a link in the slides. I'll post it on Blackboard if you want to read more about commenting. So in the next class, what we will do is we'll, just like we did the plus operation, we'll do the other operations. And we will try and make that calculator work for a sequence of operations. So if you were to do A plus B plus C plus D, or A plus B minus C plus D, those kind of things. All of that we want to cover and get the calculator to that stage. And we'll look at something called auto layout. It's a very important concept. Auto layout, what does the name suggest? Automatic layout, yeah. See, what happens is that iPhones and iOS devices come in various sizes. What you have designed, what we have designed here is for one device. If you go to your storyboard, you will see here, view as iPhone. See at the bottom, it says what device you have designed it for. If I were to go and change it, okay, if I make it a very old iPhone, don't know what this is, iPhone 5 maybe, see what happened. My calculator is gone. It's completely off the screen. So auto layout gives you the power to design one interface and it adapts to any screen size. So we'll look at that. It's a very important, very interesting concept. So that will be our next class. Okay, that's the end of today's class. If you have any questions, you can ask. Otherwise, you're welcome to move on. The code I will not post because it's an assignment, so it will beat the purpose.